Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into 5 super common traps in English. The tricky little things that even really advanced speakers can trip over. So let's get right into it. Do you ever get that feeling? Like your English is 99% of the way there, but every once in a while something just sounds a little off? You can handle tough conversations, you write great emails, but then this tiny little mistake pops up and you're like, was that right? Seriously, you are not alone. It's a super common feeling, and today we are going to smooth out those last few wrinkles.
So, let's fix it. Think of this as a quick 5-point tune-up for your English. We've zeroed in on 5 of the most common slip-ups, and I'm going to show you exactly how to get around them. You ready? Let's do this.
All right, first up on our list, tricky preposition pairs. Yeah, I'm talking about those tiny little words like in, on, at, for. The thing with English is they often stick to certain verbs in ways that, well, they just don't always make logical sense. So the real secret here isn't trying to figure out some complex rule, it's just about memorizing the pair as a single unit. Okay, let's take a look at a classic example, the verb specialize. Now I know in a lot of other languages you might say something that translates to specialize on. It feels right, doesn't it? But in English, you just gotta remember, it is always specialize in. So, the clinic specializes in treating sports injuries. Just lock that phrase in your brain, specializes in. And hey, it's not just that one. Let's do a little quick fire round of some other must-know pairs. You're interested in something. You're good at something. You're responsible for a job. You depend on a friend, and you focus on a task. And you learn at your own pace. See? The key is to think of them as one chunk, not 2 separate words. Okay, let's stick with prepositions for just a minute longer for our second point. This one is all about getting around, travel. And trust me, nailing this one is a super easy way to make your English sound way more natural. So here's the trick. I like to call it the walk around rule. It's a brilliant little shortcut. Here's how it works. If you can physically stand up and walk around on the vehicle, you use on. So you're on a bus, on a train, on a plane, on a ship. Makes sense, right? But if you're in a smaller enclosed space where you pretty much have to just sit down, you use in. So you're in a car, in a taxi, or in a van. Super simple. And this is actually pretty important and kind of funny. If you just say, I'm riding a train to a native speaker, the image that pops into their head is of you on the roof of the train, like in an action movie. No joke. The correct way to say it is, I'm riding on a train. That tiny little word on keeps you inside the train and not looking like a stunt performer.
All right, moving on to number 3. This time, we're talking about those words that look and sound almost the same, but they have totally different meanings. These are the ones where being precise really, really matters. And let's start with the all-time classic, the one everyone gets mixed up, affect versus effect. First, affect. See that it starts with an A? That's your clue. Affect is the verb. It's the action word. It's about influencing or impacting something. So the bad weather will affect our travel plans. The key thing to remember is that simple trick. A is for action, affect.
Now its partner, effect, which starts with an E. And you guessed it, effect is the noun, it's the end result. So the effect of the bad weather was that our flight got canceled. You see how that works? An action affects something, and that produces an effect, which is the end result. A for action, E for end result. Okay, another tricky pair, raise versus rise. The difference here is super clear once you see it. Raise needs you to do something to an object. You always have to raise something. You raise your hand, a company raises prices, you raise a question. But rise? That happens all by itself. The sun rises, hot air rises, the water level rises. Nobody is doing it to the sun, it just rises. See, no object needed. Okay, for number 4, let's talk about the whole British versus American English thing. And right off the bat, let's be clear, neither one is better or more correct than the other. They're just different. The most important thing is just to know the differences and then try to stick with one style so you sound consistent. So let's just run through a few of the most common vocabulary swaps. In the UK, you might live in a flat, but in the US, it's an apartment. You take a lift in Britain, but an elevator in America. and you go on holiday from the UK while you take a vacation from the US. Oh, and here's a really important one to avoid confusion. What the British call trousers, Americans call pants. That one can definitely lead to some funny mix-ups. And now for our fifth and final point. This is the one that can feel like the final boss battle of English grammar for a lot of people, knowing when to use the past simple versus the present perfect tense. But I promise, once you get the core idea, it's actually way simpler than it seems.
So the key difference really just comes down to one thing: time. You use the past simple when you're talking about a finished action that happened at a specific, finished time. For example, I visited Paris in 2018. The year 2018 is over. It's done. But you use the present perfect when there's a connection to now, or when the exact time just isn't important. Saying I have visited Paris is more about your life experience up to this point. The when doesn't matter.
And check out this example because it shows you just how big a difference this makes. If you say she worked here for 5 years, using the past simple, that means she doesn't work here anymore. It's over. She's gone. But if you say she has worked here for 5 years, using the present perfect, that means she started 5 years ago and she still works here today. See? The entire meaning of the sentence changes completely just by picking a different tense. All right, let's do a super fast recap of our 5-point tune-up. Number 1, learn those preposition pairs as fixed phrases. Number 2, remember the walk-around rule. You're on a bus, but in a car. 3, A is for affect, the action. E is for effect, the end result. 4, be consistent. Pick either British or American English. And finally, number 5, past simple is for a specific finished time in the past, while the present perfect always has a connection to now. And there you have it, 5 of the most common English traps, and now you know exactly how to avoid them. So the big question is, which one are you going to practice first? My advice, don't try to master them all at once. Just pick one, focus on it for this week, and really try to make it second nature. Thanks so much for joining me for this tune-up.